Takes forever.
Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars Underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-around good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
Why am I not in the intro? I gotta come up with a snappy line.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week on the show, we're going to be breaking down that Super Bowl TV spot for the Mandalorian and Grogu. And we've got some late breaking news that we're excited to dive into as well. Plus some more news and some hashtag Ask the SWU questions and answers. My name is Chris. Joining me on the show, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? It's good to be back. And yeah, we thought we were gonna have a trailer to talk about tonight, and that didn't quite work out, did it? So we're going to get into why that happened, what we actually got in response, and also, yes, some other stuff happened. We got a trailer for a game, and also some merchandising to get into that just dropped literally like an hour ago.
Yeah, some cool stuff that people are zooming in and analyzing certain things of. So
yeah,
very interesting. So let's get to that as soon as possible. So real quick, just want to remind everybody to punch the subscribe button, Chewy, if you're watching with us on YouTube, and to also subscribe on a podcast app if you're listening over there. You can super chat during the show. If you want to support us and you're not watching live, you can also become a channel member and do it that way. If people did not do that, it does cost a little bit of money to make the show, so we wouldn't be able to do it without your help. So we really appreciate anybody who super chats and is a channel member. It goes a long way to help make everything happen. Also check out our Discord. Link is in the description for all the fun stuff throughout the week, and check out all the other shows we got going on the Star Wars Underworld Podcast Network. Okay, so let's get right into it. Let's talk about that thing we saw. I'm not going to call it a trailer, but what we saw on Sunday.
The thing that has had the internet perhaps unreasonably up in an uproar the past few days, ever since Super Bowl Sunday, and it was obviously there was a lot going into it. We were told it was a trailer. Of course, that wasn't really officially confirmed. We know why, but basically it was just a TV spot. It was basically a beer commercial parody. Like a Budweiser parody with Mando and Grogu. For those of you, for the two people in the world that have not seen this is your description. Narrated by Sam Elliott. Just amazing. Just on its own, amazing. Amazing that this happened. Amazing that we got this thing. Obviously not what anyone expected. Not what a lot of people wanted, but what we got. And I'll just throw it to you first. What was your reaction to this thing, and what did you think?
So the first thing that we saw that was recognizable in this footage was Tauntauns. And
yeah,
there's been so many kind of classic commercials for just random products and companies that also incorporate Star Wars into it. So Tauntauns, of course, is a very, very recognizable alien animal species from Star Wars that people have known about since 1980. So I just figured at the very beginning, oh, this is cool. It's someone's decided to put a Star Wars reference in their commercial. Awesome. So I was excited to see a Star Wars themed commercial because just the way that it was shot, it was like, I don't know, it just didn't open the way a trailer usually would open with like the Lucasfilm logo or like, you know, the music or like any of that stuff, you know, that you might expect at the beginning. And so with me going in expecting, you know, a full, you know, trailer or at least a full like teaser trailer type thing, I, of course, am not even thinking that this could be, even though it's Star Wars, not even thinking it could be related to the thing that I'm waiting for to watch. So I'm watching this and I'm wondering, like, okay, what is this? Is this actually a Budweiser commercial? Like, did they do a Budweiser commercial, but instead of the Clydesdale horses, it's Tauntauns? That would be really awesome. This is cool. So, you know, I'm liking it and everything. I'm curious, you know, where things are gonna go. And I'm like, this is fun. And then we get to the point where you actually see the Mando and Grogu, and I'm like, wait a minute. This can't be. Is this the thing? Is this actually the thing? And then of course but it's still I still at this point, even when we were seeing Mando and Grogu, I still thought it was a commercial for something else, or like maybe a teaser for the teaser.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they do it. Like sometimes they'll show a little bit of a trailer. They'll say, you know, at halftime you get the full thing, or like something like that. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is like a little part of it, and then they're gonna say, you know, wait till the third quarter, or wait till later, you're gonna get the whole thing. Like that's what I thought it was, something like that. But then by the end of it didn't say something like that. It just said Mando and Grogu in theaters in May and whatever at the end. And I'm like, wait a minute. That's when I realized, oh, that's what we've been waiting for. That's the trailer, quote unquote, that we've all been hyping up for the last week or 2 weeks or however long since there've been reports and rumors about this happening. And it's at that point when I realized, like, okay, that was really underwhelming. I unfortunately I was expecting more. The only reason why it was underwhelming was because I'm comparing it to what I thought I would be getting. If I wasn't expecting anything and then I just got that randomly, that would have been great. But the only issue is just comparing it to my expectations. What we got in a vacuum, not compared to expectations, was still interesting and fun, and a fun parody and fun to be in the Super. Like, it all match. It all was great. I think where it went off the rails is just whoever put out a report that it was more than what we got, they kind of ruined it for a lot of people, which is unfortunate. That's my full thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, I think you're kind of hitting on some of my thoughts on this, because I, like anyone, like I think, like, my first initial thought was just like, wow. I think I even said that to a couple people, like, right when it was like, wow, that was underwhelming. That was anticlimactic. Like, we were all hyped up, because, like, trailers are a big deal. I know this is a big deal in anything pop culture related, but, like, I feel like Star Wars fans especially, like, we are hyped for trailers. Trailers are events. I think trailers are so special because I think a lot of trailers are really just like works of art, really, like how some of the best Star Wars trailers like have brought the excitement, brought the things. And it's also just like kind of this pure moment, because you're not like, it's not like watching the thing and then like, oh, we got to critique it. It's just a trailer. You just enjoy it. You're just along for the ride. You're just seeing what the visuals are bringing to you. And it's really a special thing. And I think a lot of people, if you're like me, that you're like, oh, I'm not that big of a sports fan. I'm not really going to watch the game, but I want to see this trailer. I'm really things. And the compounding of, like, it's been what, 4 months since we got the last teaser trailer. We're now 3 months away from the movie actually coming out. It felt like, okay, this is it. This is happening. And when it didn't happen, it was just like, this really big disappointing moment, really. But, as you're saying, like, it's actually a great little TV spot. It's actually like, I'm looking at it going like, oh my gosh, how special this is. Like, apparently Jon Favreau directed it, and, got Sam Elliott in it. Like it's crazy that they were going to look back on it and go like, wow, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe that thing exists because it's just an incredible little time capsule and things. It's like, and what brilliant marketing, honestly, what brilliant marketing to do this instead of just like a normal teaser. I think my issue with it is just the fact that it's like, I think they could have fixed this. One way they could have fixed this, if it had said, at the tail end of it, could have said, trailer tomorrow, and then actually like release the full trailer on Monday, or maybe say trailer online or whatever else. I think that would have staved off kind of what turned into just this cluster bleep of a reaction to it that was just like people, and I think what can be summed up as just like disappointment. People were hyped up for a trailer and they didn't get it, and they were told, yes, they weren't told by Disney or Lucasfilm. It was not officially confirmed. It was a deadline report, I think, initially, that, oh, there's a trailer coming. And so, like, we should, maybe we shouldn't have got ourselves hyped up, but I also don't think it was invalid. I don't think it was a crazy notion to expect, even without the reports, that, hey, we might get a trailer during the Super Bowl. We're overdue. It's been 4 months since the last trailer. The marketing's got to start at some point. Where is it now? So I think with that, I think it's just like a lot of disappointment. Unfortunately, a lot of on the other side, a lot of dismissiveness of people just being like, oh, you're hating your things. I'm just like, I think people have a right to be angry and whatever else. And I think people have a right to kind of call this out and go like, okay, what is actually going on with the marketing of this movie? This is weird. This is an odd choice. It's not a bad choice per se. It's just odd. You just kind of left scratching your head going like, okay, that happened. Okay, all right. I mean, I'm looking forward to the trailer still, but like, that's weird that happened. I think that was just my initial takeaway. It was just like, yeah, this is weird. Not a bad weird, just weird.
Yeah. And like one of the things, kind of one of my first thoughts about it is we had just seen a commercial for the next Minions movie, like a few breaks before that. And that was very much, it was just kind of like a minion running towards the screen in like a white void. That was it. Like there was no real footage from the movie at all. It was just this little, teaser TV spot like thing. And, that movie, of course, is aimed at a certain demographic audience, mainly younger kids and their families bringing them to the movie. And so it kind of made me think, and my initial thoughts were, okay, it feels like it fits with that. It feels like this is like a very general audience trailer that, even really young kids are going to completely understand. Like, oh, it's, instead of horses, it's this alien, and, it's Mando and Grogu and like a sleigh. Like, even if you're like 3, I think you can kind of comprehend what's going on. Whereas I think, a bunch of scenes that are always changing and showing things from the movie, at a certain age, when you're young enough, it starts to not make as much sense. Probably if you're younger than like 4 or 5. And so that's another thought that I had in addition to kind of my later thoughts of really, this was a brilliant thing that just kind of the expectations didn't line up properly. And that's why it got hate. Was I think they wanted to show something with so many people watching it. I think they wanted to show something that as many people as possible would understand. And that maybe if there's like kids watching the TV, they might point to it and be like, oh, Daddy, it's Baby Yoda. Oh, there's a Baby Yoda movie. I want to take you to the Baby Yoda movie. Like, stuff like that. So it's like you get the full range of the audience. You get the older fans who know the context of the Budweiser commercials and kind of get the inside joke of it. And then you've got the really young fans that still understand the context of the whole point, which is just reminding you there's going to be some Baby Yoda coming in a few months. So I think, from that perspective, it works. And I think it definitely continues those vibes that I think we've been feeling for a while, that Mando and Grogu is going to be a very general audience Star Wars film, which is actually returning Star Wars to what it originally was. Because if you go back to the original Star Wars movie, it was a family movie. It was a movie that was intended for kids and kids of all ages. And And I feel like, we're really going back to that with Mando and Grogu as well. There's nothing about this movie that seems super mature or super adult. It's definitely not in the same genre as something like Andor or even The Acolyte with some of the, wild, violent scenes in The Acolyte.
Right.
So I think it'll just be really interesting to see how a movie like this lands, because it could go one of two ways. It could either be like a real smash hit because it's actually a general audience Star Wars thing that you have like 4 generations of people going to, and it's making, $2 billion because it's just hitting every single demographic and everybody, it's accessible to. Or it just becomes out of pace with the direction that Star Wars content has been going, becoming kind of more and more and more adult since kind of 2005. Since 2005, it seems every few years, so another step is taken. Star Wars gets more and more mature. So I'm curious to see if it either helps or hurts the movie that they're going for this direction, if this marketing is to be believed that it's a very fun, lighthearted, adventurous, very, very accessible type film for as many audiences as possible.
Yeah, I mean, I think weirdly, interestingly, this whole controversy, if you want to call it that, like this whole discussion about this teaser, is like weirdly bodes well for the movie, I think, because like I didn't hear like anyone say like, oh, this little TV spot sucked or it was bad or whatever else. I think most everyone was just like, hey, this is interesting, this is really cool, I just want more. There are people just like generally be like, I don't know anything about this movie, I want to know plot details, I want more footage, I want more of this. People just like antsy to like, I want more, I want to see a trailer, I want to see things, I'm invested in this movie. And I think another flip side of that being like people there were kind of like, I was similar things like, what is Disney doing with the marketing of this movie? What is happening here? And like that, it comes from a place of not hating, but just like being like, I want this movie to succeed. Like, I believe in this movie. I think this movie could maybe not make $1 billion. I think it could make a good chunk of change at the box office. I think it could be very successful. It's already supposed to be like the cheapest Star Wars movie to date. So like, if it could, I think it bodes well for the business side of things, that it makes things. We want more Mandalorian movies, hopefully, in the future. We want more seasons of TV, hopefully. So it is interesting that like, the anger around that was just like, we want more from this thing. And also, I kept hearing all night that like people that knew like quote unquote normies, aka just normal people that aren't on actively online, like people were really receptive to this teaser. Really, a lot of people seemingly found out Sunday night that a Mandalorian movie is happening, which is kind of crazy, but also, yeah, a large general public, a lot of people aren't online. They didn't watch the trailer that was released. So now we have like the tent's getting bigger. People are aware of this, and people are antsy for more information. And yeah, so I mean, it really is kind of like, okay, well, now we're heading in the right direction. People want this. I've always been in the corner of, this movie is going to be a sleeper hit. This movie's, don't count The Mandalorian Grogu out. I'm not saying it's going to make $2 billion, but it might make some money, and I think it's going to be a crowd pleaser. So very interested to see where this goes.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. It's fascinating just because it's different. Like, that's why. Like, if they're going with something that's similar to something they've done before, then it's like, okay, it's kind of a roll of the dice. Is it going to be the same or not? But it's really fascinating because it's so different. It's such a departure from anything they've ever tried before in so many ways. And if a lot of I feel like the closest thing we've ever gotten to this is maybe the Clone Wars movie. Like, I think thematically and the way it's come about, I think the Clone Wars movies is the closest. But the thing that's really different about it is that the Clone Wars wasn't an established thing when the Clone Wars movie came out. And we often theorized during the Clone Wars, what would it be like if they put out another Clone Wars movie? If they put out one of the great, arcs like the Umbara arc, or even ended the show like with the Siege of Mandalore as a movie, like how would that do? What type of reception would that get compared to what the Clone Wars movie got in 2008? And so I think this is kind of the closest thing to that type of situation of seeing a Clone Wars movie, is seeing a movie that's made in part by the guy that in part made the Clone Wars, Dave Filoni, that might include potentially some character references from the Clone Wars as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think, I just think this, I don't want to make any bold predictions, but I feel like a lot of people are on board with this movie. Very excited. I think that's the kind of the big takeaway from this is that people want more from the Mandalorian and Grogu, and I think maybe release a trailer soon. That would be nice. A trailer, guys. Just drop a trailer. Why don't you just do it? Just do it because people are really things. And I know there's a lot of talk online about like, oh, they did Lilo and Stitch this way. They wait until the last minute. Things have changed from COVID. I get that, but also Star Wars is not Lilo and Stitch. Okay, it's not. And I think they have an opportunity here to really start building things. And I think what happened today, which we're about to get into, I think this whole thing that's happened this week, I think is pointing towards the fact that the marketing campaign has begun. I think officially. I think it's finally because I think it's not just been a lack of trailers. Like we haven't really gotten anything. Like really nothing. No articles. No interviews. Whatever. Like people have been jokingly referring to the fact that Starfighter has been getting a lot more attention than Mandalorian and Grogu, and it's over a year away from release of that movie. And I know it's due to the fact that like Sean Levy's been out in the press. He's doing Stranger Things stuff. Whatever else. I get that. But it is just a whole strange situation. I think it's like, okay, we're getting a movie this year, guys. It's happening. Let's talk about it. Let's find out more because we got a lot of stuff today that I'm like, I want to know more about that. I want to know more about this thing. So yeah, very exciting. Let's get into it. How about it? So today, literally as of a couple of hours ago, we got toys. Guys, we got toys. The toys are here. They dropped a pile of toys from Mandalorian and Grogu on top, and also some other stuff. Lucasfilm was kind enough to provide us with some great images of some of this stuff. And actually, when I saw the press email coming, I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of stuff. And it's not all Mando and Grogu. Some of it is some random stuff, but there's a lot in here. Obviously, we're not going to host all of it on the thing. There is a StarWars.com article. There's a Gizmodo article that goes into detail about all this. We've been posting some stuff on our socials. But the big takeaways here is that we got Sigourney Weaver has a Star Wars action figure now. That's a thing.
Awesome.
We got Colonel Ward, I think is her name. And we got her not in her costume that we see her in the trailer, but in her X-Wing pilot costume, which seems to confirm that she's going to fly an X-Wing. Pretty cool. I love it.
Yeah, this is cool. So I have an opinion about action figures, and I'm going to apologize for that opinion, because I'm sure I'm the only one who has that opinion. But it just so happens that because there are a lot of characters that pilot X-Wings, and also because one of the characters that pilots X-Wings is one of the most famous characters in Star Wars, Luke Skywalker. The amount of action figures that exist that's just an X-Wing suit with a different head on it and a slightly different helmet design is just absurd. There's just so many different, and because the only thing that's different is the head, it just becomes really monotonous to me. So as a result, after getting to a point where I'd gotten to maybe collecting 10 or 15 various X-Wing pilot characters, I just never wanted to buy anyone in an X-Wing suit again. Because it's like, unless you look really closely from far away, it just looks like you have 100 X-Wing pilots, just the same character, over and over and over and over again. And it's not something that, one, you're never going to have enough X-Wing vehicles to put one in each of them. And then two, it's not like a stormtrooper or a clone trooper or something where you kind of want multiple of the same thing because it's an army. Because there's no real like army flanks of X-Wing pilots. So, so I I will not be buying this out of principle because I just stopped buying anyone in an X-Wing outfit like 10 to 15 years ago because it's just the same action figure over and over and over again with a different head, and that's just not my thing. So if someone gifted this to me, I would be happy, but I would not spend money on it for that reason. But that's a personal thing. Everyone else is welcome to buy it just for Sigourney Weaver's head, even if they already have that body on a bunch of Luke Skywalkers and and other characters.
Is that what's happening here, though? Is it the fact that they can just easily reproduce this, cheaply?
Yes.
as opposed to like creating like what would be a completely top-down new look for just like just create the head and make a little different design on the things. I would love to like have a Luke Skywalker, like a new Luke Skywalker or whatever else, and this figure and like compare them and see like how close they're. I bet you they're exactly the same.
Yeah. Oh, it wouldn't surprise me if they changed the little things, and I don't know how difficult it is to change little things. For me, it's just the visual, just all the orange. It's not my favorite color. It's just too much. But yeah, I'm sure in certain figure lines, like maybe some of the less expensive ones, I'm sure that they kit bashed them together from the same molds. Would not surprise me.
It is.
Maybe they just changed the paint job a little.
It's also interesting that we like through maybe this happened before then, but I know in Rogue One, like we had like the Blue Squadron costumes where they had like the blue jumpsuit instead of the orange jumpsuit. I think there may be some other colors too. So it's interesting that we haven't gotten more, like they just changed the color, but like it makes it look more different than that. Obviously, Mando and Grogu seems to be leaning hard into the nostalgia effect. I think they probably couldn't pass up putting Sigourney Weaver in a proper orange X-Wing pilot costume, but would have been cool in another color. Maybe we'll get some other colors. I think even Zeb. Maybe it was one of the teasers or whatever else. I think Zeb is wearing like a blue jumpsuit or something like that. So I don't know what that is.
This goes back. This kind of line of conversation goes back to my the peak of my collecting days when I would be getting a new action figure every 3 days on average or something like that, and I was trying to get every single one that they made, and they were also making more because they were smaller and easier to make, and I at that point for a year or two, maybe 3. Whenever I was watching something new in Star Wars, which at that time I think was mainly just the Clone Wars show, I was just asking myself, would this character make a good action figure or not? And that was kind of driving my interest in the character designs in the Clone Wars show, was just, would this make a good action figure or not? If it wouldn't, I don't like the character. So now we're back to that of okay, on camera for nostalgic purposes and as a reference, it makes perfect sense for her to be wearing the same thing that Luke Skywalker wore in 1977. And it's an interesting cross to be oh, it's the person from that other sci-fi movie from the late 70s, early 80s. I forget the exact year when Alien came out. But that other person, but then she's wearing this costume that Mark Hamill wore. It's it's an interesting thing from that perspective. But from the perspective of action figures, it's really boring. It's okay, you're just gonna get the same action figure again. So it's kind of fun seeing it from that perspective, which normally I don't look at it from, but now I have to because I'm staring at this action figure for 10 minutes.
Yeah, and on a different note, Tough Luck in the chat says and sent us a nice super chat. Thank you very much for that. And they said, who doesn't have merch of Road of the Hutt?
Wait,
and
is that true?
And well, okay, so technically speaking, and we talked about this a few weeks ago on the show. There is a Ahsoka Tano. I think the first figure they ever created for the Clone Wars movie has a little teeny tiny Rhoda. So actually, technically, Tough Luck, you're not correct. But I know what you're talking about. You want big buff Road of the Hutt from this movie. I think that's what he's referring to.
Yeah.
Which, interestingly, there was one shared around today. Some people were talking about was this. It looks like it's like a Road of the Hutt fighting one of the characters that you see that from the hologram holochess characters. It was presented as like official. I don't think it is. I think it was fan made because it's not in any of the press images that they released on this. People were sharing this around Blue Sky, and it looked really cool, but I don't think it's official. I think it just happened to be released. I think someone like photoshopped it or whatever else. But I could be wrong. It could be wrong. But I don't want anybody to get their hopes up and expect to think, because I don't think they're ready to pull the lid off of a good old Road to the Hut. But who knows? Would love to see more of that character in things. Another thing that I wanted to bring up was the Razor Crest, and this is the. It is small. It's smaller things, but the thing is that this thing is called, and I quote, Razor Crest. It's a Razor Crest Lego set, not Razor Crest 2, not Razor Crest, another one, not Razor Crest 2 Electric Boogaloo, nothing of that things. It's just Razor Crest 2, and it's just got yellow paint on it. And interesting thing about it is it comes with Grogu, with his little a medallion thing on his front, like a new style minifigure. There's a Stormtrooper with an E-Web. There's Mando. There's Zeb, and there's Colonel Ward. So, actually, this is low-key might be the best set coming out for the movie, to be honest. If you don't already have a former Razor Crest set.
Yeah, and it's good for people who can't afford the big Razor Crest set, because I think that's pretty expensive. Like that's like a really nice set. So it's cool that they're doing a scaled down version of it. And it actually still looks pretty good for how small it is. Like they did a good job with designing it. Like it doesn't look like a caricature of it at all.
The Lego has done, this is one of the reasons I love Lego so much, is that they do really well with like even the smaller sets, like really designing them well, and like there's a lot of curvature to them, and they're very accurate with things, even with the smaller ones. So that's great. Moving ahead, we got Funko Pops are back. Zeb Aurelios from the movie. I guess you could technically say from Mandalorian season 3, but also this movie, okay? Mandalorian and Grogu. He's got his I don't know what kind of gun or weapon he's got in his hands, but live action Zeb in a Funko. It's happening.
He looks so much older. He looks so much older in this particular mold. He looks like he's like 80 years old.
Yeah, his hair looks to be graying a little bit. I don't know how old
his face is like lighter.
I don't know how old those guys get. But we also got this is interesting. This is something that has not been shown before. The Anzellan spaceship, which is, I assume, a tiny little spaceship that you see. There's a shot in the original trailer that was shown at Celebration of Grogu and the Anzellans like cramped in a little cockpit, and they're flying through space. And I think it's this ship. And so it's like, I'm sure it's like a scale down, because like the little minifigures that come with it are like to scale and like really, really tiny. And you can imagine like comparing that to like how tiny the characters are in the movie. That's gonna be interesting. So I don't know. It weirdly, I think it might be based on the original Millennium Falcon design, because it's got the engines in the back, and it's got the middle cockpit.
Yeah,
so it's kind of like that early like they were gonna do like the Tantive 4 design, but as the Millennium Falcon with like the singular cockpit.
Before the guy saw the olive on the hamburger or whatever the story is.
Before Joe Johnston is like, well, that's a pretty good design.
Yeah, I really like this is the first you've shown of the packaging on the screen, and I really like the packaging. I think the colors are really cool, and it reminds me. I can't remember if this extended to Lego or if it was just like Hasbro and some other companies that did this, but there was like, I think it was the second like the first refresh, so like the second version of the Clone Wars merchandise was these colors, kind of like a dark blue and black kind of stormy like gradient. So it reminds me of those colors, and I like it. I think it works really well, especially with Mando and Grogu. I think it works the colors work really well with the characters.
Yeah, no, I like this. Low-key, this might be a set that I kind of want, to be honest. Because it looks really cool, and I love something that will actually make me want to buy a set or buy an action figure is the accessories. If you give me like, oh, I really want that minifigure, then that. So the Anzellan minifigures are like freaking adorable. I love that.
Lego.
All right,
Lego did.
This next
Lego
one,
Lego did use those colors. It was the second grouping of Clone Wars, and it had Captain Rex on it, and the colors were like matching Captain Rex. If you compare like those colors and the way that Captain Rex is positioned on that packaging, this is almost identical to that. The only difference is instead of like clouds in the background, it's Lego pieces, but it's the same colors, the same positioning as that Captain Rex design.
That's interesting. A nice little connection there. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, want to show you this next one because on the surface, you might say, it's just another X-wing. It's just another X-wing. What's so special about this? What could possibly be interesting about this thing? Well, let's zoom in a little bit. What are those minifigures? What are they looking like? You got a New Republic astromech droid, you got Colonel Ward in the orange jumpsuit, and you got Carson Teva.
Nice.
Yeah, I know. Lego sets are not the best at like predicting these things. They're actually very bad at like throwing things into sets that like don't belong together or whatever else. But I am taking this as confirmation that Carson Teva, Paul Sung-Lee, is back as Carson Teva in The Mandalorian and Grogu.
Has to be.
Because that is, I feel like there was very little doubt to begin with. I feel like you gotta have the Nick Fury of the Mandoverse in this movie. Come on. Was there ever a situation where he was not going to be in this movie? So I'm taking this as confirmation. We shall see in a few months, but very glad to see has Carson Teva had a minifigure before? I'm trying to think.
I have no memory of that, but I've not looked at every single set's minifigures.
I need to go check Paul Sung-Lee's page because he might be on stream freaking out right now. Because for one, he could talk about the fact that he's in the movie, and number two, he has a minifigure, which would delight him more than anyone else in the world. So that's great. And actually, you know what? Pretty cool. I've got an X-Wing, okay? I can't justify buying another X-Wing, but like, it's pretty cool. It's got the blue markings on it. It's more Resistance-esque with the blue. I like that. So yeah, I dig this.
Yeah, that's cool. Lego definitely has revealed that certain characters have been in movies plenty of times through the minifigures that come with their sets, and when the images either leak or are released of them. And I think that kind of comes down to like, when you look at the action figures, they tend to stagger it and not put them all out at once, and they tend to have the more obvious characters that are used in marketing come out first, and then like a few months later you start seeing maybe some of the characters that are more surprises that you didn't see in the trailers. Whereas Lego just puts everything out at once. Like they just have everything ready to go at once. They don't stagger their releases as much, so they kind of have to tip some things off if they're going to include characters beyond just the basic ones in their sets. So unsurprising that we potentially might get another character revealed through Lego, because it's happened many, many times in the past few decades. Many times.
Oh yeah, it's and what's always funny is that like some of these images were already floating out there before today. They had obviously leaked, as they usually do. So people were talking about like, oh, what's this? What's that? They're talking about the Anzellan ship, and yeah, I've got enough threatening emails from Lego lawyers in my inbox to not talk about those until they're officially released. So yeah. Won't be doing that, but very exciting things. And I did not include the images, but I know for a fact in the stuff, and they should be out there somewhere, but I know there was it looked like to be a life-size Anzellan, a talking Anzellan figure you can buy from the Disney store, like things like this big, like
Wow.
basically life size.
Nice.
And there's also a Mandalorian and Grogu Lionel train set that I'm
Whoa.
like,
That's
okay,
cool.
all right. I kind of want that. And there's apparel, there's all kinds of stuff. And there's non-Mando affiliated stuff that's also coming out there. And then we got a look at the visual dictionary, and I believe the art of book, all that's out there. So they've dropped a lot of stuff in the end, and they're calling it what's the name of it? Most Wanted campaign. They actually name the campaigns. It's not just the Mandalorian and Grogu campaign. It's the Most Wanted campaign. And they did a whole hullabaloo today to reveal all the toys. So yeah, go definitely check out. Oh God, I'm getting notifications right now. The GOAT Carson Teva fire emojis. People are really excited about Carson Teva back. Man, the Carson Teva hype is real. It's real.
Oh my gosh.
But yes, a lot to be excited about. And I guess, okay, you gave us some toys. I guess we'll look the other way. This will tide us over, give us something to talk about for the next few weeks while we wait for the trailer. But yeah, no, this is very, very exciting. And the movie is now, if you can believe it, less than 100 days away now. Less than 100 days.
Wow.
We are in double digits in the countdown here. So yeah, gonna be exciting. We got a couple of things. Let's do a couple of things before we get into some questions. This is actually pretty interesting. So screenwriter Matthew Robinson, who you may remember was working on Rogue Squadron, was writing it with Patty Jenkins. He actually spoke up this week, or I think it was last week, to Polygon about that process. And of course, we've all been like, "Oh, that movie is forgot about that. That's one of the many canceled projects. Forgot that was happening, or that it maybe is still happening. I don't know. According to him, it doesn't seem to be happening, but this is what he said, and I'll try to be brief with this. He says, quote, "It was a great thrill to write that, especially to work with Patty, who had a very personal story. It was very much a movie about fighter pilots. Her father was a fighter pilot. It was a very personal story to her, and we were trying to tell a really great personal story about fighter pilots and Rogue Squadron pilots in the Star Wars universe. I think we did a great job with it. I really hope one day we get to see that version of that. I don't currently know what Lucasfilm wants to do with it. They're in a pretty big state of flux at the moment after Kathleen Kennedy leaving, and who knows what the future holds for them theatrically," end quote. So he's basically saying, like, worked on it. It was fun, but I don't know what happened with it. So, not a lot of new information here, but, cool to hear that it's apparently good if we ever see it.
When was that supposed to come out? 2021? I want to say, like...
At least by now. I'm pretty sure we were supposed to see that movie by now. Supposed to be talking about it by now.
It was going to be the next movie after Rise of Skywalker, right? That's kind of what I'm remembering in my head.
I mean, they had a teaser. That movie had a teaser trailer.
Yeah.
That movie had Patty Jenkins on a runway, roller skating down a runway with again, in a pilot suit, skateboarding up to an X-Wing and talking about how she's excited to make this movie. And somehow it has not been made yet. Amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that was affected by so many things. Like, I think COVID probably affected that. I think her scheduling with other movies affected that. And then I'm remembering some other thing about, like, it being too difficult to work out some of the VFX or something, but I don't know where that's coming from. It's the depths of my memory. The depths. I haven't thought
also,
about that in a while.
it can't you can't fully count out the reactionary part of it, because I think it might have got announced pre Wonder Woman 1984 being released, and that movie was not well received at all, and I think I can't, just like with Ryan Johnson, I can't help but believe that might have something to do with it, and I remember. Don't know what to make of that.
I remember nothing about Wonder Woman 1984. I just remember vaguely.
That's good. You won.
I remember the only thing I remember was that it was supposed to be almost like a parody on other superhero films, but like it didn't land, so it just seemed bad. But like the intelligence of the jokes didn't work properly. Like that's the only thing that I remember. I remember nothing else about that movie. I forgot about it. If you had asked me like 5 minutes ago how many Wonder Woman movies are there, I would have said, well, there's one, Wonder Woman. I don't. I
basically
would not
is.
even have recalled
Basically
that
is.
this movie existed. I don't know if even if you've asked me to name all the like failed Star Wars projects, how long it would get until I would remember that Rogue Squadron was a failed like that Star Wars project. I would have been talking about the Benioff and Weiss stuff and the Rian Johnson stuff and like all these other things and Josh Trank and all these other things way before I got to that.
Oh my god. Yeah, that's a whole a failed franchise within a failed universe. It's all water under the bridge at this point. So I don't want to hold that movie against her fully. Even I don't know what I just remember being so hyped for that movie and then being like, this movie's weird, guys. This is a weird, bad movie. But look, I still love this idea that like you're revisiting this, hearing Matthew Robinson talk about it, like it's a great idea. I think a star pilot movie, even though we're getting a Starfighter movie now, which weirdly seems similar to this, although I think the premise is much different. I don't know. I part of me really hopes that this is on the table, that this can still happen. Even though I have little faith these days when it comes to these kind of things.
I mean, Rogue Squadron has the feel of a movie that would have gotten made in the George Lucasfilm, and that's mainly just referencing the fact that Red Tails got made, and George Lucas was such a big fan of like dogfighting scenes. So I imagine if this had been pitched in an alternate timeline where George Lucas was still heading up Lucasfilm, either been pitched earlier or he'd stuck around later, I think this would have a better chance of getting made because of the fact that we did get Red Tails and because of his personal affinity for that. So I think it just didn't fit. It doesn't fit with that kind of timeline of what Disney's doing with Star Wars. It fits more with kind of a pre-Disney Lucasfilm like concept for content.
Right, and I think there was some recent reports saying that maybe it's going to return into a TV series, maybe for Disney Plus, which that also seems sketchy to me because I'm like, it really feels like Disney is pulling back on the streaming front. So like, I don't know, it feels like they're hard pressed to like, okay, everybody go write a script and bring it back and let's do a movie. Like Taika Waititi, all these guys, like they're in the wind working on their scripts. We want somebody to bring back and do, so we can do as many movies as possible. I would think Rogue Squadron would be the same thing, but I don't know. But I do know that it would be nice. I think I've loved the premise from day one, and I really hope we see this movie one day.
Is this like, does this happen in other franchises? Is it because we follow Star Wars so closely that we notice this, or like do all franchises have these like all these scrapped movie ideas that got at various points? Like, or is there like a random kind of like, I mean, it's funny that I arrive at the same word because it was not through the process of word association, but was there ever like a rogue Marvel movie and then it just never happened? Like things like that? Are there all these film projects for other things?
There's like, funny you say that because like, I believe this has been a while ago. Me and Zach did an episode of IPC where we talked about the top 5 canceled movies. These movies that never happened. And I would love to go back and actually revisit my top 5 list and see what was on my list. But I know just like superhero movies in general, like I know not like the MCU to its credit, like seems to be pretty well-oiled machine. There's not been like you had the whole, the falling out with like the Ant-Man crew, and you had like Edgar Wright was on to do Ant-Man, and then he kind of left at the last minute, and they kind of retooled that whole thing around Peyton Reed, and so that was like kind of the biggest director shakeup. Like other than that, there's not a ton of canceled movies, but I know like George Miller was supposed to do a Justice League movie like back in the day. Like you had, Brendan Fraser's talked about, auditioning for a Superman movie that J.J. Abrams is going to direct maybe. Like
wow.
There's all these projects I think most of the time we learn about them after the fact. Like there's the whole, Nicolas Cage was doing, was going to be Superman at one point. Like there's a lot of DC projects that didn't get off the ground. Like,
Interesting.
So I think with Star Wars, it's different because we haven't had that story history like having all these movies. We just had the 6 original ones, and those were all just done by one guy. There wasn't a lot of drama there, and then now it's just this new era, and we've had this thing where Lucasfilm has been oversharing. Let's be honest; they've announced stuff when they should not have announced it, and I think you have people like James Gunn, who is out doing DC movies now, being like, "We're not doing things. We're not going to shoot something unless we have a thing." But he's also been open and honest about like, "Yeah, we're going to do this," and no, that's not happening now because the script wasn't up to par and I'm not doing it. And I think if Lucasfilm is going to announce things and then not make them, I wish to be a little more honest. I think Kathleen Kennedy has been a little more honest, and maybe she will continue to be even more honest now that she's out of office. But I do like those frank conversations about just like, hey, we're thinking about this, we're doing this, but it does get frustrating, and we're in this weird limbo now where people are just like, I see the comments. People talking about like, oh, here's this movie. Well, if that ever comes out because Lucasfilm can't get their act together, I'm just like, I don't want to be overly negative, but you got a point. Things are not, they have announced a lot of stuff that just never happened, and it's a bad mark on the studio, unfortunately.
Yeah, that makes sense. Very interesting.
Oh yeah. It's wild. It's wild is what it is. But okay. This is actually related to stuff that could happen. Now, this is something that should be taken with a ginormous grain of salt. But I want to mention it because I'm personally very excited by this. So Production Weekly, who I don't know much about, to be honest, but I know they are a reputable source. They keep up with industry stuff, productions that are going into production, and all this kind of stuff. They put out just a list of productions that are either coming soon or stuff that's happening. And 2 things, Star Wars, were included in this. I think this is specifically in regards to TV production. One of them is Skeleton Crew 2, and the other one is The Mandalorian 4. So what we can glean from that is that perhaps they are getting ready to start production on season 2 of Skeleton Crew and perhaps a 4th season of The Mandalorian. I obviously love Skeleton Crew. I would love to see a season 2. And I think also, I would love to see a season 4 of The Mandalorian, even after Mandalorian Grogu. What tips me off, what makes me think that maybe this isn't necessarily accurate is, in my opinion, based on what I know, based on what I've heard, I think The Mandalorian as a TV series is over. I think after The Mandalorian and Grogu, depending on what that movie does, 1 or 2 things is going to happen. 1, it's very successful, and they greenlit The Mandalorian Grogu 2, The Mandalorian Grogu Quantum Mania, whatever they want to call it. Or B, it doesn't do well, and they're like, well, say goodbye to Mando and Grogu. Like, I think the franchise may be done after that, or at the very least, we might just see Din Djarin and Grogu in other people's shows and movies, and there won't necessarily be a continuation of that particular story. I think the likelihood of a season 4 is unlikely. even though I would love for it to happen. I would love for them just like, yeah, we're just going to do seasons and we're going to do movies and stuff like this. That would be great. But I just don't think, I think once they prove that it's a movie property, I don't think they're going to want to go put Mando and Grogu back on TV screens anytime soon. But Skeleton Crew, I think, definitely thinks. But what does add credence to this, I promise I will shut up after this, is I think the changing of the guards, both at Lucasfilm and Disney, could lead to, Josh D'Amaro, Dave Filoni, Lin-Manuel Brennan looking at stuff and being like, hey, this is sitting here and hasn't been renewed. What if we renew it? That's also a Hollywood staple of like so many productions have lived and died by studio heads changing, being like, they were so close to production, they had a cast and they were about ready to shoot, and the studio head got fired. And it was back to square one, and then it got shelved for 12 years. Like that line, that story has happened so many times, and the reverse happens too. So I don't know what to think of this. I'm just hopeful.
Yeah, because when you put it like that, it kind of sounds like Dave Filoni canceling his own project. Which, how would that happen? That's a very, very good point. Like Filoni versus Kennedy, there's going to be some difference in how the Mandoverse projects are handled from a producer point of view with a different president of Lucasfilm. I think I would like, and I've come to almost always expected the Mandoverse, or I guess the broader Filoni verse, the Favroni verse, this thing that we have that includes the Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka, to kind of be like how Star Trek was in like the 1980s, like the kind of late 70s to like early 90s, where you had kind of a seamless integration of films and TV series, where you had like the Next Generation show, but then you had the Star Trek Generations movie, and that kind of tied, that show into whatever one was before or after that. I forget now, but so that's kind of what I expect to see. What I wanted to see and what I expect to see is you'll have a season of a TV show, then might have a movie that takes place between seasons, and then you have another season of the show, and then maybe the show might change names, but it's still kind of continuing the same characters, just kind of moving it along to another generation or group of people. So I think the only question that I have is clearly Book of Boba Fett and Mandalorian are the same TV series. Like, they're the same thing. Like, it just so happens that there was kind of a mini season that was not completely, but somewhat focused on Boba Fett that happened between Mando seasons.
Mostly.
That's basically what happened, because you had a very important connective episode in the Mandalorian arc inside the Book of Boba Fett. So that was just... And that's why I think it was called the book. It's like an extended arc about Boba Fett inside the Mandalorian show. And so that exists. But then you have Ahsoka off in a different space right now, because Ahsoka isn't really referencing much of the Mandalorian. Now, that being said, Ahsoka got backdoor piloted from the Mandalorian. So it's still in a sense from the same, it's kind of like a different branch coming from the same tree. And so really the question is, are we going to keep diverging off into different kind of almost like timelines with different characters doing different things? Or are we kind of going to come back together in a similar way to how the MCU works? Where the MCU, you have like this kind of movie that sets the tone for a lot with the Avengers in 2012. And then you end up with all these further like Iron Man movies and Captain America movies and all these different introductory movies like Ant-Man and all these different things, Guardians of the Galaxy, and then they all kind of come back together into things like Infinity War and coming up Doomsday and things like that. And so the question is, like, are we going to get a situation where you end up with either a movie or a TV show or both, where all the kind of main characters and plot lines from all the different shows and movies that are set in this timeline that Filoni's directly working on, they're all going to kind of converge back together into this kind of like super cast story that's going to have, you know, all the Book of Boba Fett people, all the Mandalorian people, all the Ahsoka characters, all the characters from Mando and Grogu, all put together into one movie or one TV series. Or are they going to continue just their own separate parallel paths and not come back together, except maybe one character being referenced here or there, one situation just being referenced? That's really the only question that I have. I think it's less about movies and TV shows. I think it's going to continue being both. I think we're going to continue to get further seasons of TV shows and new TV shows set in this era with new characters, or maybe backdoor pilots into different shows like with Ahsoka. And I think we're going to continue to get more movies as well, because obviously we've got another Filoni movie along the horizon as well that ostensibly is going to be the end of the Ahsoka series. So yeah, I think that's what I would like to see. What I would like to see is them going back and forth between movies and TV shows, and I would like them to recombine them. It would be interesting to do different branches and keep them separate and have their own like finales and payoffs and their own kind of little story corners. And maybe that might happen with some of them, kind of like it happens with the MCU. But I think it is very successful. The MCU, some of its greatest movies have been movies that just combined like 30 or 40 different characters. And so I think it'd be so interesting to see them do that with Star Wars as well. So I want to see them try that.
Yeah, no, you got me thinking with the whole Star Trek comparison, because you got me thinking about the fact that Star Trek and Star Wars have been kind of on parallel paths in a way, because Star Trek obviously famously started as a TV series and Star Wars started as a movie, and they both kind of like cross over with each other, you know, delving into each medium. Influencing each other from the very beginning. But then more recently, you know, you've had like, you know, you had Next Generation, you had Enterprise, you had all those series back in the 90s and early 2000s. And then those kind of petered off. And then you got J.J. Abrams bringing it back and being like, okay, we're going to reboot it. We're doing it. Three more movies. Let's go. And then those kind of petered out. And then you had the kind of the rebirth of the franchise on TV, on Paramount Plus, whatever you want to call it, on streaming, with Discovery, Strange New Worlds, all these new shows, and that are all, most of all of them are connected, very similarly to the Mandoverse. And they're all taking place in a timeline where there are no new Star Trek movies, just like there haven't been any Star Wars movies in a while. And so we've kind of had these individual eras where there's a string of movies, then there's no movies. And there's a string of TV shows, but there's no movies. And now we're kind of left with like, okay, how is this going to happen? Because, you know, obviously Star Wars movies are coming back. The TV shows are still going on. Star Trek seems to be thriving on TV. Low key, Star Trek, Starfleet Academy, pretty good. I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to throw that out there. Because I've seen it in a couple episodes. But also, like, you know, seems like Star Trek 4 or whatever the new Star Trek movie is going to be seems to be in development hell for the past 10 years. Like, they haven't gotten off the ground, but like eventually there will be new movies. And I'm assuming at that point there will be more TV shows. Like, how do those interface? And like the one franchise that has done this, that has managed to keep it all together and have them cross over and be connected, is the MCU. Like, the MCU has like gone overboard to almost to the point where people have like, you know, complained about like, well, I didn't watch that TV series. I didn't see Falcon and Winter Soldier, so I don't know who this other Captain America dude is. I'm just like, if you just watch the movie, they explain it in Thunderbolts. Like, it's all an exposition, guys. They know what they're doing. But like, they have had this thing where it's all in order, it's all connected. You know, one thing leads to another. You have characters that showed up in TV are now going to be showing up in Doomsday now. So like, I would hope what you're saying is true, that like it'll just continue to roll on, and that we can have, you know, if it's a story, and according to Jon Favreau, according to what he was saying, like he had he has season 4 written. It almost sounded like it was a separate thing from the Mandalorian and Grogu. So I hope that they get to shoot the scripts that he wrote. I hope that that is a separate thing, and it's not just, Mando and Grogu is just like a sandwiching of all of those scripts, but actually a completely different thing that they can do now once the movie is done. But also, I'll be happy if Mando and Grogu just continue to live out, have 8 more movies. Mando and Grogu part 5 or whatever they're going to call it. I don't know. But I think, and just like going off of Skeleton Crew, perfect. Do that, okay? Like that's a perfect setup for a season 2. Like freaking do that, guys. The kids are the perfect age now. Don't let them grow up too fast.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot that was part of the story, the report. We got so sidetracked talking about Mando season 4 and the Mandoverse, and completely forget about Skeleton Crew, which potentially could tie into some of that too. That would be very interesting.
Right? Yeah.
I mean, it would be very obviously like. When given the choice between Acolyte Season 2 and Skeleton Crew Season 2, I'd much rather see Acolyte Season 2. So it's a bit frustrating that Skeleton Crew is more of the recent shows that would potentially be getting a second season. But I get it because the economics involved. That show was probably a lot less expensive to make than Acolyte. So I get why it, potentially could more likely have a Season 2. And, I'm not going to be negative about anything getting a Season 2 because I think all the Star Wars shows deserve to continue there. Yeah, that I could definitely see that happening. I could see that happening for sure.
Yeah. As far as it goes, it's like the Mandalorian had a good ending in season 3, like a good book ending. Like I'm assuming Mandalorian Grogu will leave some threads open, but it'll also try to tie up pretty well too. So, and then Skeleton Crew, as much as I want to see season 2. Also had a great ending. It was things. Acolyte is that just giant, open, dangling thread of a story, and I don't care like if you loved Acolyte or hated Acolyte. Like freaking Darth Plagueis, guys, come on, he was gonna be in season 2. Like they were setting up the Knights of Ren. How could we not do that story for God's sake? Like it's frustrating the more you think about it. Just like, come on, guys! You just give it one more season. Try to wrap it up. Like it is very frustrating. But and then Book of Boba Fett, I think, was clearly setting up for more stories, but we haven't got more of that. So I don't know.
Book of Boba Fett was a very, very noticeable moment in the history of Star Wars. Because it was the first time that they did something that didn't work. I like all the stuff, all the shows that have come out. I think they're all great. And so I don't think anything deserves to have not come out. There's nothing where I would have said, oh, they wasted money on that. They wasted time on that. I don't feel that way about anything and for shows. But that being said, I remember the shift that happened because prior to the Book of Boba Fett, everything had been working with Disney Plus. Everything Disney Plus was putting out for both Star Wars and Marvel was very, very successful and critically acclaimed. And then the Book of Boba Fett was the first one that started getting shaky, where it wasn't perfect, where there was some kind of things done. There's like, okay, that could have been. We looked at it and be like, okay, that could have been better. Like they could have reordered the way that they told that, re-edited it, or wrote that a little differently. And a lot of people felt that way. And so it's not surprising that that hasn't seen a continuation because I think that show was not fully. It felt like you're trying to feed someone something that's just a little undercooked. It felt like an undercooked show. It needed just a little bit more, one more pass over it. I feel like to merit a season 2 and really make it happen. And so I'm not surprised.
And it was clearly an experiment. It was clearly a like, oh, well, clearly everyone watches all these shows, and like, we're just gonna continue to tell the same story but in a different show. Or like, this is basically just season, 2.5 of Mandalorian, even though they didn't really say that at first. So like it was clearly like them trying to do something, and just like it like I'll never forget, like, like that episode where Luke Skywalker and Ahsoka show up. I'm just like, this is great. This might be some of the best Star Wars I've ever seen. But it's also real weird. It's like the stupid Mandalorian and Grogu TV spot again. It's like, this is great, but it's also real weird. I don't know how I feel about this.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit with expectations. A lot of this comes down to, what are people expecting? What are you leading people to expect? You have to be very careful when talking about something to make sure that it fits with expectations in a way that doesn't like ruin it for people. Like, and it's very tough, because it's like, you want to surprise people. Like, that's important. You definitely want to surprise people. And so I'm not saying that you need to prime everybody fully for everything they're going to see, because you want sometimes people to see something and be like, oh, wow, I was not expecting that. That's cool. But at the other point, I think there's certain rules that you can't break. And I think one of the main rules is, if you have a show that has the title of a character in a show, you can't have some of the best content be about a different character. Like, I think one of a great example of that is Thor: Dark World is my favorite example of that. Something I've not mentioned in a very long time, but I used to do something I would mention a lot in referencing things, where, and they corrected that mistake. They actually corrected it, because what ended up happening was Thor: Dark World, the character of Loki, was written basically as the main character of Thor: Dark World, as a kind of anti-hero, like antagonist character, and Tom Hiddleston completely shined Chris Hemsworth, I believe, in the acting in that show. And so what did you end up happening? You ended up getting a little bit way further down the line a Loki show because of that. If it weren't for Thor: Dark World, we would not have gotten a Loki show. But the thing is, Thor: Dark World is considered one of the weakest and most hated Marvel movies, or at least was until some of the newer generations of things came out, like the Marvels and such, that like really tanked for a lot of people. And some people didn't even watch. But like, I think expectations, like they could have just simply called that movie Loki and Thor. If they had called that movie Loki and Thor, like they're calling this movie Mando and Grogu that's coming out, it would have completely changed the perception of that movie. It is my opinion that movie would have gone up in ratings 20%, just if the name of the movie was Loki and Thor and not Thor: Dark World, because it was a very bad Thor sequel, but a really good Loki movie. And so, same thing with Book of Boba Fett. Like, if they had called that just like Mando season 2.5, it's going to focus a lot on Boba Fett, but it's still 2.5. I think people would have actually liked the show a little bit more, instead of just expecting, oh my gosh, it's going to be fully about Boba Fett, and why is there a whole episode where we just ignore the main character of the show and just go back to an episode of another show that's not even related. It is, but not fully related to this story that you're telling right now. And so that's really important. So you still have to be a little bit careful with expectations when it comes to naming something, when it comes to how you talk about something, and you can surprise people, but you can't go so far that you just completely switch one character out for another. That just is too much.
Yeah, I think it just that was a whole weird situation in one way I'm just like, oh, that was crazy, and like that was so much fun, and also I'm just like, please don't do that again. Like, communicate with the audience better, title your stuff better, have better things, because that was definitely just like that was a head scratcher. Again, a head scratcher of a moment in Star Wars history that I'd rather not relive when we can help it. But But something that doesn't leave me scratching my head is the fact that we got a brand new trailer for Star Wars Galactic Racer. And I mean, this game is looking better and better all the time. Not just because like we got a gameplay trailer, we actually see these are the best trailers I think in regard to you actually get to see like, okay, how is it actually going to play? Like, what's the gameplay actually look like? That's what interests me the most. But also the fact that we recently found out that pod racing will be included, even though they were kind of keeping that kind of a secret there for a while. It will indeed be a part of the game, and the biggest part of this is that they revealed at the tail end of the trailer, we see Sebulba and we see Ben Quadraneras battle in and out, maybe on Tatooine, I don't know. I mean, this game is set in the sequel era or Mandoverse era, so I'm not sure how they're going to figure that in, because Sebulba has like his original pod from Phantom Menace. I think it's destroyed, so I don't know how that works, but very cool to see that pod racing is going to be included, because I think that's what most people are thinking about, is being like, oh, hey, Star Wars Racer, pod racing? And that wasn't kind of absent from the first game. It's cool to see it confirmed here, and it looks great. It really does.
Yeah, exactly. I've never I haven't been as big a fan as those games as you personally, so I'm not as hyped about it, but I'm excited that because so many people are, that they're continuing to with that. Like that's cool. Good for them. Good choice.
Yeah, no. And it seems I get the impression that like the pod racing part of the game may not be maybe something you work towards, maybe in a way. Then it might not be something that like you get right off the bat. And I think that makes sense, because ultimately when people think of racing in Star Wars, they think of pod racing. I think that'd be interesting to like, let's hold this back. Let you just do some swoop bike racing or speeder racing or whatever else, and like build up to the big leagues, because like we know in universe that pod racing is not something everyone can do unless you're, force sensitive, chosen one kid, human. Like, you're not going to be pod racing. So that should be interesting to see like how they integrate that whole aspect of it into the game. But yeah, it looks great, and I think it's past time for us to get a racer game in Star Wars. So very excited.
Heck yeah.
All right. I think that's all for the news, but we got a couple questions here. I want to get these. I want to definitely get into these because they are Valentine's themed. As Valentine's Day is coming up in just a couple of days, and I don't want to save these for next week because Valentine's Day will be gone. So let's go over to Dr. Hugh. Hugh says, with Valentine's Day coming up, which worlds could you see yourself visiting, either with loved ones or otherwise? Or perhaps it could just be a simple solo retreat. Here are a few examples of mine. Naboo would be the obvious top choice for me, with its rivers, plains, and ancient ruins. Bespin skies would be idyllic to observe if I were to visit Cloud City. Takodana would otherwise be both beautiful and fascinating to visit due to its rich ancient history. Dang, Hugh, you took all the beautiful planets. What, I'm supposed to say Alderaan now? Like, come on, man.
Oh. Wait a minute. There's 1,000 planets in Star Wars. Come on. You got to know more planets than that.
I know.
I feel like I'm just going back like 10 years in the history of the show with some of these topics cycling back that I haven't thought about in a long time. Glee Anselm is my most romantic planet for sure. And this is Kit Fisto's planet. And it's lots of tropical beaches is why.
Yeah, I mean, I like that because we don't have like, I don't know, I guess the next best thing, if you're talking about like a beach planet, which I'm not really a beach person, so I wouldn't say this, but like a beach planet would be like Scarif. Scarif is not necessarily like, you don't think of it as paradise, but it is like, it's a beautiful place. I don't know. I think weirdly, I'm still gonna go back. It's my favorite planet in the Star Wars galaxy. Coruscant, I think, is still like I think could be very romantic, very interesting.
Hold on. Okay, here's the thing. Now I'm picturing you trying to buy some death sticks during a romantic getaway, and it's just an interesting image in my head.
Look, I'm not talking about the lower levels, okay? I'm not talking about the Outlander Club. That's not the most romantic part of it. That's the least romantic part. That's the probably gonna get. I'm probably gonna get my arm cut off in that part of town.
Okay, so you take your Valentine's date to the opera house, and then you turn to them and ask, "Have you ever heard the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise?"
Oh God,
I can imagine this as well.
I'm just saying. Look, upper levels. You know, if we happen to get caught between the moon and Coruscant, you know, the sparks will fly. That's all I'm gonna say. But that's my answer. And look, write it in. Tell us what you're most like. What planet do you want to have a date on, or just go? Because if you don't have a date, then just go there by yourself, like Hugh says. But yeah, I think out of all of them, Cloud City probably is like I feel like the most like you're in the cloud. Like that's the most kind of romantic,
especially during sunset
surroundings. I feel like.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The best sunset in the galaxy in the Cloud City. Come on.
Cool.
All right. Joel Davis. Do I know that? Do I know that person? I don't know. I'll think of it later. Joel says, "Here's a fun Valentine's Day question: who are your favorite Star Wars couples and why? For fun, can you make them canonical or non-canonical? For fun, you can make them canonical. So any legends, canon, whatever goes. There's a lot. It's expanded. I've always gone back to like weirdly, I think the Han-Kira relationship is like super compelling to me. I'm just like, those two could have worked out if stuff hadn't happened. I know Han and Leia for life, or at least for a while it was, but I always think, I don't know, what do you have any two in mind?
Oh yeah, Quinlan Voss and Kayleen Hetz. Let's go. Quarter Voss.
Why did I not see that coming?
Parents, yes, 100%. Because there's nothing like I also. Oh, because here's the thing. It's like it's if like Satine and Obi-Wan could actually stay together. That's what it's like, that story, but better.
Yeah. I can see that. Yeah, and it's Satine and Obi-Wan, another one that I'm like, yeah, that's I know tragic, but one that is near and dear to my heart.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah, and also R2 and 3PO. It's a couple, it's two, and they're friends. He didn't say it had to be a romantic couple, although you never know with R2 and 3PO. Yes, that's great question, Joel. I'm trying to see if there's anything else.
Joel has a super chat.
I don't think so. I think we did it.
Did we get to Joel's super chat?
I don't think I did see that.
Yes, it was related somewhat to what we were talking about before with the movies and the TV shows.
Was not paying attention when he actually sent them in.
I was gonna mention it before our topic moved forward, but then you did it, and then I'm like, okay, we'll just get back to it at that point. He said, I get the feeling we are headed for one-off movies and shows with little to no connections till we get to Kinberg trilogy and Filoni's film. So it's a little different than what we were discussing, because we were discussing kind of movies versus TV shows and how they would connect to each other. He's kind of saying that he thinks that there's going to be a lot of standalone things, both as TV shows and movies. Like I could see that as movies because we have all these like revolving projects like Taiki Watt TV project and Starfighter and such. But that's an interesting idea that there's going to be a lot of one-off TV shows because again, we haven't had really the next grouping of TV shows announced yet. It'd be very interesting if they're all not related to anything we've seen before. That would be really fascinating.
I mean, I'm all for that. Honestly, I'm all for going on a limb, doing stuff. You know, I just don't want them to pull another Acolyte. I don't want them to like semi-commit to something. Like, you know, if it's gonna be a true one-off story, like Skeleton Crew, like I love that. I love to just get things. I would love to have more Skeleton Crew, but I'm glad that it happened, and I'm glad that they made something that was completely, you know, aside from that one pirate dude, it's pretty much a completely standalone story on its own. That, you know, I think ultimately it works perfectly. But if they're gonna be like, oh, here's this other story, and also we have 3 other seasons planned, and we're not going to actually give them to you, that's a problem.
Yeah.
So so it's a double-edged sword of just like finishing or connecting what you have, and then going back and doing this, and you know, having stuff just left hanging is never a good idea.
Yeah, I would like to see a combination of them, and that's what I kind of expect. Like I expect it to be a combination of sequels and things that kind of are spin-offs of other things, and then kind of some more standalone stories. Like Skeleton Crew is a good example of like a really like it's not really related to other stories compared to like Ahsoka and Book of Boba Fett that are clearly branched off from the Mandalorian. So I think I'm kind of assuming that they're going to continue with a little bit of both, like maybe a Mando season 4 or another season of Ahsoka, but then maybe another random story kind of like Skeleton Crew that's just not related to anything else. I think a mix has been working well, and I think they should continue doing that, and I would hope they would. I'd be surprised if they change up a winning formula with that.
Yeah. So I think they can do both. They can do either. They can do one or the other. You know, it will be interesting to see, like, because I think my biggest takeaway is that like we are entering a new era. I think we had a kind of a clean break between, you know, I know, you know, technically like the penultimate episode of Mandalorian like aired right when like The Rise of Skywalker was coming out. So I know like there was some crossover, but not much. And there had this been this like, we had the film era, the first phase of that. We had the TV era, this streaming era. Now we're going into, you know, the Mandalorian will be the start of something new. And obviously we're getting Ahsoka, but that's kind of left over. Like, what happens next? Where do we go from here? What is this going to look like? Obviously we have Starfighter on the horizon, but like beyond that, what will the movies be? What will the TV shows be? How will this all come together? How will it things, or you know, are we going into an era where there's going to be a grand plan and everything's going to be connected, or is it going to be a experimental era where, you know, they're just kind of throwing stuff out there to see what sticks, and then that will be the blueprint for the next 10 years. It's fascinating and nerve-wracking to think about.
Yes, it'll be so interesting to see what happens in the future. All right, so that'll do it for this episode of the Star Wars Underworld Podcast. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching to the show. We'll be back with another episode next week with the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion. In the meantime, follow us on social media. We're at the SWU, either in handle or name, depending on how the site works. Ben, thank you so much for hosting tonight.
Oh, it was an absolute pleasure, as always. Sorry to everyone, including myself, who were disappointed by the lack of a trailer. Okay, I get it. It was a rough going there for a while. But look, plenty more. We'll have plenty more trailers. There's going to be a point before the movie comes out. We're going to be like, no more trailers, no more TV spots. Stop! Like, it's everywhere. Like, it's going to get hairy, and it's going to get weird before it gets better. So patience you must have in waiting for more Mandalorian and Grogu footage. And if you want to pass the time better. I believe, I haven't confirmed this to Joel yet, but I believe it is time once again for The Mandalorian. We are trying to rewatch The Mandalorian before the release of The Mandalorian and Grogu. And I believe this week we will be on the Discord watching the season 1 finale episodes.
Awesome.
So that'll be fun. Be fun to revisit. It's been fun rewatching season 1 because it still holds up. It's still great. And going back to that, obviously, so we'll get into season 2 after that, and then we'll try to squeeze in some other stuff too. Maybe some Ahsoka, maybe some Skeleton Crew if we have time. But time's wasting. Like I said, 99 or 98 days as of now. So crazy.
Awesome. The link to our Discord is in the description, and you can follow Ben on social media at Ben Hart with no E. Make sure that you stick around later next week for all the other shows on the network. We've got Ion Cannon coming up on Monday. We got Tractor Beam coming up on Wednesday. Tales from Beyond the Galaxy is working on some new content. And of course, we've got tons of content on the Raeside, Hannah's channel as well. So you make sure you check all that stuff out. Huge thanks to everyone that super chatted tonight. We appreciate your donations so much, keeping everything running. And as always, thanks to our channel members as well on YouTube for their subscriptions. Make sure that if you haven't, that you punch that subscribe button, Chewy, on YouTube or your favorite podcast app on your way out. So that's it. We'll be back in 7 days. For Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you. It's a wrap.